So, you're an early stage founder, and you've definitely heard this advice before. When you need cash and you need it fast, just use a convertible note. But what are you actually signing? Well, today, we are going to pull back the curtain on this super powerful, but, really tricky fundraising tool. You hear it all the time, right? It's the go-to answer when you need that capital injection. But a full-blown equity round, it's just too slow, way too expensive, and honestly, it's probably too early. So someone says, just use a note. And it sounds so simple, like the perfect shortcut. But here's the catch. That simple advice hides a ton of complexity. I mean, sure, most founders get the basic idea. You get money now, you figure out the valuation later. But what they don't always grasp are the hidden risks, or how this one little document can totally reshape their ownership down the road. So today, we're going to break it all down. We're going to start with why founders even face this dilemma in the first place. Then we'll dissect the note itself, expose the sneaky dilution that can catch you by surprise, and then hand you a strategic playbook so you can use these things wisely. And we'll wrap it all up with the one big takeaway that truly matters. Okay, first up, why even go down this road to begin with? Well, it all comes down to a classic startup problem, the urgent, overwhelming need for speed. So here's the scene. You need cash to keep the lights on, to keep building, but trying to put a price on your company right now? Oh, it's an agonizing debate. You just don't have the metrics yet, the product isn't quite there, and arguing over valuation feels like you're just pulling numbers out of thin air. A convertible note lets you completely sidestep that difficult conversation, get the cash in the bank, and just keep moving forward. All right, so you're thinking about using a note. Great. Now, let's pop the hood and really look at the key terms inside that actually define the deal. This is where the devil is in the details, and those details can make or break your future cap table. Okay, so at its very heart, a convertible note is basically a loan. But it's a special kind of loan that's not meant to be paid back in cash. Instead, the whole promise is that this debt will transform or convert into company stock, into equity, when you go out and raise your next official funding round, the one where you actually set a price per share. Now, the valuation cap. This term is absolutely critical. Think of it as a ceiling on the valuation for that early investor. Let's say your company's value just explodes to $10 million. But if that note has a $5 million cap, well, your early investor gets to convert their loan into shares at that much lower $5 million price. It is their reward for taking a huge risk on you before anyone else would. And then you have the discount. This is another little reward. It gives the investor a straight-up percentage off the share price that all the new investors are paying in that next round. Now, here's the really important part. If a note has both a cap and a discount, the investor almost always gets to pick whichever one gives them a better deal, which means they get the lowest possible price per share. Yeah, these notes have interest, but you're not writing a check every month. This interest just builds up, it accrues, and it gets tacked on to the original loan amount. So a $100,000 investment with, say, 6% interest over a year converts as if it were $106,000. It's a form of quiet dilution that can really add up. And then there's the maturity date. This puts a ticking clock on the whole thing. It is a hard deadline. If you haven't raised that next priced round by this date, the note comes due. And look, while most investors want the equity, not their money back, this term can create some serious pressure, especially if you're in something like deep tech, where development cycles are just naturally longer. Okay, now for the part that catches so many founders totally off guard. We're talking about the hidden dilution, that moment when the invisible math of the note suddenly becomes very real. So right after you sign the note and take the money, you look at your cap table and it looks perfect. It's clean, you and your co-founders still own 100% on paper, the cash is in the bank, you're building your dream, and man, it feels like a huge win. But that feeling, it's temporary, because the dilution wasn't avoided, it was just deferred. The moment you raise your next round of funding, that conversion is triggered automatically. And this is when the cap table shock usually hits. And boom. Suddenly, that deferred ownership stake just appears out of nowhere, and it's often way bigger than you thought it would be. For instance, if you raise your Series A at a $10 million valuation, but your old note had a $5 million cap, well, your note investors are buying shares for literally half the price of your brand new investors. And that's how a $500,000 check can end up buying 10% of your company when new investors had to write a $1 million check for that same piece. So you're probably asking, where did all this extra dilution come from? Well, first, remember, it was always coming. You just kicked the can down the road. Second, That quiet interest we talked about has been building up, increasing the total amount that's converting into shares. And third, if you raised on multiple notes with different caps and terms, well, the final math becomes this incredibly complex puzzle that can spit out an outcome you never, ever modeled. Okay, I know that was the cautionary tale, but look, convertible notes are just a tool, and when you use them correctly, they are incredibly effective. So let's pivot to our strategic playbook and talk about how you can raise smarter. So what about safes? You've probably heard of them. Well, a convertible note is a debt instrument. That means it has interest and a maturity date, which gives investors a legal right to demand their money back. A safe, on the other hand, is not debt. It has no interest, no maturity date, which is generally more founder-friendly. But, and this is a big but, you have to beware the post-money safe. Unlike notes or pre-money safes, it actually guarantees an investor a specific percentage of the company after their money is already in, which can cause way more dilution than you might expect. So when is a note the best choice? Well, they work brilliantly when you have a really clear line of sight to your next fundraising round, like within that 12 to 18-month window. They are the perfect bridge. They're also a great fit when your investors, who are often more traditional angels, just prefer the legal protections that come with a debt instrument. And please, whatever you do, avoid these common landmines. First, keep your terms consistent. Having a party round where everyone has a different cap or discount is just an administrative nightmare waiting to happen. Second, model the dilution. Use a spreadsheet, use a cap table tool, just don't guess. And finally, be brutally honest with yourself about that maturity date. Make sure it lines up with a realistic timeline for you to hit your next milestones.
All right, this brings us to our final and I think most important point. This isn't just about the type of document you sign. It's about the entire mindset you bring to the fundraising process.
So here's the crucial point. You have to stop getting lost in the whole note versus safe debate. It's not about the name on the document. It's the specific terms inside the agreement. The valuation cap, whether it's pre or post money, the interest rate, these are the things that truly define the deal and its ultimate impact on your ownership. So before you sign a single thing, I want you to run this really simple checklist. 1, model the full maximum dilution. Understand your absolute worst case scenario. 2, be honest about your timeline and set that maturity date accordingly. And 3, keep your terms clean and consistent for every single investor in the round. I promise you, this discipline now will save you from massive headaches later. Look, convertible notes are an incredibly powerful tool for getting a company off the ground, but they demand your full attention. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Are the fundraising decisions you're making today just solving a short-term cash problem by creating a long-term ownership problem? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.